So I don't know if the restaurant line, but only one out of the 5 was good.
Okay, so
You're standing around, right?
I'm here.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think that's. We need you more than ever. For numbers there, like, yeah.
Okay, and the other two people who are gonna be, and we're live, I'm not sure. Okay, can we, so we don't even hear the which is we're live. Okay. Just before we get started, can I confirm, Tanya, should we be moving the public speakers to the beginning of the meeting or keeping them with the agenda item?
The agenda, because that's what people online and.
Perhaps we can consider this next time there's public speakers, is putting them right up at the top. Are they?
We couldn't move it because we didn't know until after the agenda was posted.
Well, we don't know that they're watching. Like, are the people, the folks who are,
So Lori Poppy is here.
Mhm.
Alana Hampton is here in person.
Is she going to?
She will not. She don't
So you
know.
don't know all four sheets or?
There should have been four. I don't know who all is here. We could have more coming on to online. I'm just watching it.
I think we'll just proceed with the order of the agenda and we can make it a sketch to how we do this in the future if we want to. Okay, sorry, just let me get the agenda. Okay, hi, welcome everybody to the public meeting of the Victoria and Esquimalt Police Board on January 21st. I'd like to start by asking Deputy Chief Jason Laidman to do our territorial acknowledgement. Make that doing.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to acknowledge the Lekwungen speaking territory that we are holding our board meeting on now. Sharing a quick story of police jurisdiction. I go back a few years when we brought the pulling together journey to the Victoria area. We worked with both the Esquimalt and Songhees nations in partnership to bring the journey here. The journey was situated first through 3 days out, excuse me, on the Songhees lands for the camping. The journey went ahead and we had an event at Protocol Corner in the Inner Harbor. And I remember being invited up to the corner on land to watch the canoes come in and witness the welcoming ceremony. It was very impressive. It went off without a hitch. And the personal story for me is I walked away with one of the former chiefs of the Esquimalt Nation. And I said, it'd be really great to get together for coffee and build relationships, et cetera, but I have to be mindful of jurisdiction, policing the jurisdictions. And he said, because the RCMP police that nation, and he said, I'm going to stop you right there. He says the Victoria police the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, which is extensive and it's inclusive of our jurisdiction that we police here in Victoria. So that had quite a profound impact on me. So the territory acknowledgement here for our building where we work and where we police these territories, the traditional sense is Lekwungen speaking. And I will always remember that story. So I'd like to welcome you to Victoria Police Headquarters, which are situated on the Lekwungen speaking territory.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I just want to take a moment to welcome some of the members of the public who are here in person and online. I am really heartened to see members of the public coming to police board meetings. So thank you for taking time. I'm sorry to inform you that we will be having we will be following the agenda. So there'll be a few items before we get to your opportunity to speak and participate at the agenda item, but we're really pleased to have you here. For item number 2, we have rescheduled our special presentation on the volunteer and reserve program that I am really looking forward to having provided to the board until February due to sickness. So we can look forward to having that presentation then. And ultimately, I think it's good because we do have a full agenda tonight. I'm just moving on to any declarations of conflict of interest. Seeing none. I am going to look for an adoption of the public agenda of January 21st, 2025.
So I'll move the agenda as presented.
Seconder? Holly, any additions? Great, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. I'm also gonna look for an adoption of the public minutes of December 10th, 2024. Holly, seconded by Paul. Any errors, omissions, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that motion carries. Yes. I don't have anything specific to identify in the board chair update. I'm gonna speak for item D for BCAPB and CAPG update. So I'm going to move to item E for committees update. I've got governance first, so I'll hand it over to our governance chair, Paul Farrow.
Thank you, Chair. I will just put on I will move on behalf of the Governance Committee that the Governance Committee recommends that the board produce an attendance summary of participation for all board and committee meetings to be posted at the public website on an annual basis.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Ollie, any discussion?
Well, we are a public board. This is quite common practice for public boards to, for transparency and for accountability, to just show that, we're doing the work that we've been tasked for. There's no agenda here. It's simply the way this would work if it's approved by the board is at the kind of the end of the year, the board, executive assistant will produce a summary and it will simply get posted up. And if you actually go and look at other public boards, I was looking at one that triggered me to this was the BC Assessment Authority, where they do it under on a regular basis, and it's just an automatic process. You have board meetings, you have committee meetings, and you have any other, and you just have the names and you just list it for. So it's for transparency, accountability, and I'd encourage the board to support the motion as presented. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Dale?
I'm just kind of wondering about the effectiveness of that, because when policies and things change in organizations, it's often on a go forward. So I think to have it like for last year, when does it start? I think it would be fair to do that for people. Get them notice.
Molly?
It was discussed at governance that Tanya has all of the required information to post for 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know that people need to be put on notice for it. It's just a transparency.
I will say there's an expectation set out in the manual for board participation. I don't have the manual piece in front of me, but it's certainly already outlined what the expectations are. So I don't think that's an issue either.
And just the final point is, we're still young in the new year. The intent would be to do it for 2024. The data is already there. Then at the January next year, it'll be for the coming year. So it would just be an ongoing basis. That would be the intent. I mean, if we were in November, I'd be kind of going, okay, that doesn't make any sense. But we're just 21 days into the new year, and I think the data is sitting fresh with our EA. Thank you.
Thank you, great. So I'm going to call the motion on that. All those in favor? Wait, sorry, I've got 1, 2. It's hard with the online. 3 in favor. Any opposed? Abstaining, you have to vote.
No, oh, sorry. And fine.
You're opposed?
No,
Okay, then the motion carries. Very much. Human resources. We have no discussion arising. So we'll move on to the finance for the monthly financial report. Donna, are you going to speak to this or is it just in the package for information?
I can speak briefly.
That would be great. Thank you.
So the report is as at the year to date, December 17th. At that point, the budget was 99.5% spent. There are a lot of adjustments and additional costs that come in at year end. At this point, I don't have a sense of where we're going to land other than to say it will be in a deficit position. 1.1 million approximately will is attributable to retirement costs for which we have no budget, so they're an unfunded liability, but we can fund those from the employee benefit obligation fund. So after that, we will still have a deficit, but it's too early to say what it's going to be. At this point, it was around 200,000, but to be determined. So in terms of this report, there are some areas more broadly by division that we're coming in with overages. The one that will probably remain, I wanted to speak to, was in community services. And I will say that this is based on the distribution of the staffing budget. So for the 2024 budget, those were for staff, those were set in the middle of 2023 in the midst of a reorg. And so the 2024 budget does not accurately reflect all of those changes that occurred. There is an offsetting underspending at this point in patrol and the Esquimalt division. We'll see where it all lands at the end of the year. And also at this point of the report, the integrated units have not been billed for their share of the services. So that has a big effect on the end result. The only other thing I wanted to say is that this report was briefer than usual because I've been having some financial data access issues through the city since the middle of November, something to do with firewall issues. So it's very difficult to do a financial analysis and explain variances when you can't access the data properly. So I just wanted to let you know that that is underway and in the process of being resolved, although it has been a long time coming. So yeah. Oh, also, I wanted to just remind the board, I had a look at the framework agreement. So given that we are very likely to have a deficit at the end of the year, once I know what that is, I will bring forward through the finance committee, the amount that needs to be funded from the financial stability reserve. That's a requirement of the framework agreement that the board approves those expenditures.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Donna, and thank you for all the work that you're doing on your end. Any questions for Donna?
Just out of curiosity, why is cybercrime just written in as NA?
Which page?
Page 2.
I think this is the first full year we've had a cybercrime sergeant. So there would have been
Oh,
no
okay,
previous,
so-
there would have been no change because there would have been no previous data to compare it to.
Okay, yeah, so there was no money actually budgeted for it, so
Right.
that's just identifying how
Right.
much has
Yeah.
been spent and.
Yeah, the computer analysis section in 2025 rolls into these.
That makes quite a substantial difference, though, if there's no money budgeted for that, and then we are in a deficit of almost $500,000.
Yes, so you'll see I tried to explain the cybercrime unit in the computer analysis section, you have to look jointly at, because some of the costs, there was confusion when you roll a business unit in a section into another section, costs get charged to one when they should have been charged to the other, and it was done preemptively in 2024. So I will be prepared to explain that at your end, but if you look at them combined, there is an offset.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? And I will move on to item F, board member engagement update. This is an opportunity for board members to share with staff and members of the public any police board related events that they've attended. Gail.
On December 25th, I had the pleasure of popping into headquarters twice, because I wanted to wish the officers, thank them for their service and to wish them a safe holiday season. And they were certainly enjoying the turkey dinner that was provided by the chief. The one thing is they were using wooden cutlery, which wasn't great, but in fact, in the afternoon when I went after my dinner, they even asked me if I wanted to sit and join. I didn't. I basically thought it'd be important to go and say, the board appreciates what you're doing. although I didn't speak for the board as a whole. So I think that was quite nice to do that. And of course, there was a swearing in ceremony on January 9th, that a few of us attended.
Thank you very much, Dale.
Just further on my colleague's report on January the 9th. The swearing in ceremonies are actually a real special time to go and actually see the ceremony of people wanting to come and work for Vic PD. And I've had the pleasure now of attending several of them, and I know many of the board members go, but there was 6 new recruits that wanting to join the Vic PD family. Among them was a school teacher, a port inspector diver, a shelter support worker. And, when you actually look at the history of all the different types of backgrounds from the recruits, it's quite amazing. Quite a diverse group of individuals wanting to come here. And it's a real special occasion. And I know we have one of the mayors here, but certainly it would be great when I think we should try to reinforce this to encourage councils from both Esquimalt and Victoria to come and actually see those recruits moving forward. And maybe we can try to just, I know we send the invitation out, but maybe we can twist a few more arms, because it really is a fantastic event to see the wonderful people wanting to come and work here at Vic PD. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. And I think that's a great idea to more personally invite or actively encourage council members to attend a swearing in, because it is a really excellent opportunity to see new members of Vic PD shining. I'm always so impressed by the bios. They just keep going and going and going, and you wonder how they've accomplished so much. It's really fantastic. Do we have any more board member engagement update? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move to the BCAPB and CAPG update. And Tanya, can I ask that in the future we put the full wording of these acronyms, and I will identify them. So BCAPB is the BC, and this is incorrect, BC Association of Police Boards. I have the pleasure of being the vice president of the BC Association of Police Boards, and I just wanted to give a brief update to the board of what we've been doing. We completed a robust strategic planning session over the last year with a grant that we received from the province. And that's finally coming to a close, and we'll have a new website launching shortly, which I think is really important for BCAPB to be more present in the community and to have more of a clear presence of what we do and who we are. Conference registration is now live. I've been talking about this for a long time, but the conference is May 7th to 9th. In Delta. I hope as many members of staff and senior leadership from Vic PD will come as possible. And I will be canvassing the board for interest so that we can sign up before the early bird registration. It's going to be a really fantastic opportunity. BCPB is also engaging in ongoing, pretty meaningful and robust engagement with PPSM. And even though I just asked to not use acronyms, I don't even know what that stands for. Can some police officer help me with that acronym? PPSM. Policing something modernization.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is.
Okay,
I'm not sure I can help you with your acronym either.
Really put my foot in my mouth by asking for no acronyms and not knowing what this stands for, but I'll just say the province for now. With the province on various aspects related to updating policing governance in the province. The BC Association of Police Boards asked for more opportunity to be involved in that process after the first round, and we've really received that. That's been really meaningful and impactful to have the representatives from each board across the province being able to participate in the discussions about how things might change related to provincial governance. And really, I'm just appreciating the opportunity to work more collaboratively with boards across the province. I think shifting from having the mayors as chairs to having different chairs on each board and having members of
So,
have members of the communities as chairs has brought up a lot of questions, and there's been a really excellent opportunity for collaboration.
like as like local.
We're not muted right now too, that's why.
Can I just ask thank you, if you're online to keep muted unless you're speaking. CAPG is a Canadian Association of Police Governance. I'm also grateful to be a director on that board. And I recently spent 5 days with CAPG in Ottawa. 2 of the days was a strategic planning session. One of the main things that came out of that is that CAPG will be putting out very shortly a national suite of training that will complement provincial training for boards related to governance issues and dealing with some of the overlapping issues that are happening in boards throughout the country. It was extremely valuable to spend time with boards and board members from across the country. It was really interesting to get different perspectives, see what governance looks like for them, and gain a better understanding of what's happening elsewhere. I've got lots of spreadsheets going with all the information I gathered, and I'm looking forward to bringing a lot of that stuff forward for discussion. And I actually sit on CAPG as a representative of the province through BCAPB, so I don't know if you knew that, but that's why I'm there. And the other thing that we did was participate in a 2-day governance summit while we were there. It was really informative and interesting. We had an opportunity to hear from Ryan Teschner, the Inspector General of Policing in Ontario. It's a position that they have there that we don't have here, that I think we will one day. Anyone in the province is listening to this public meeting. They're really governance focused. It was a really excellent opportunity to hear what Ontario is doing to support and legitimize policing governance. We had a presentation on forward planning for technology costing for boards. That was extremely interesting to have a robust discussion with boards across the country about how they are learning about and considering future costs of technology and how they'll keep pace with that. We had a presentation from a sergeant in Ottawa. They're doing a specific model of policing that they call core policing, which is focused on policing challenging neighborhoods and challenging pockets within the city. They've had a lot of success with that. And we had a really interesting presentation from the head of the Police Foundation in the UK, which is a think tank that does policing research. He presented on the impacts of 10 years of austerity measures in the UK and what they're dealing with policing now. And also some discussion on what regionalizing of 8 municipalities in Scotland looked like and led to. So it was a really fantastic opportunity to learn about all those things. I have access to recordings of all the presentations. If anybody is interested in them, you can just email them to me and I will share them. And even if you're not interested in them, everybody should email me and ask for that one on the austerity measures in the UK. It is mind-blowing. It was my favorite presentation that I've heard in a long time. So thank you very much for that. And I'm now going to pass it on to Chief Manick for the Chief Constable update.
Perfect, thanks. Thank you, Chair. I'll start off. There's no admin update. So I'll start off with Deputy Chief McRae on an ops update, and then you turn it back to me and I'll finish off on a couple things. Thanks.
Thanks, Chief. I have a couple files to update the board on. The first of which was earlier this month on January the 15th, a mischief, and it actually occurred to our own headquarters here. So at about 6 a.m., somebody known to us as a high-risk offender using rocks began smashing the front windows of the police station, successfully damaging the doors and windows at least 6 times through, or pardon me, at least 7 times through decent sized rocks causing the damage. He was actually observed by members who were just arriving to work for the day. That was reported to the on-duty members who were able to safely take him into custody, and upon reviewing and interviewing him, he admitted to then damaging and doing something similar to 4 other locations, including 3 Island Health properties as well as a private business. The offender does suffer from some mental health issues. His behavior may be associated to some of the medication he was taking, though that is a bit hard to determine. But ultimately, it did cause damage not only to our facility, but over the course of several hours before he damaged our facility, he managed to damage several others. A second file on January 19th, and you might have seen we did a media release, I believe, on this yesterday. Was a man who was seen carrying what was thought to be a real firearm at Hillside Mall. This, for obvious reasons, resulted in a very significant response. Our members searched the mall and ultimately took the suspect safely into custody. What was believed to be a firearm turned out to be a pellet gun. If you've seen the photo of it online that has been posted by our community engagement team, it is a very real looking pellet gun. It looked like a firearm. The suspect had a variety of things, including warrants for his arrest for other offenses. He was breaching court-ordered conditions not to attend malls. He was so charged with that, charged with the arrested for the warrants, and then charged with a variety of different offenses, including carrying a concealed weapon, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and failing to comply with a release order. So that file, a very high profile file, and because of that high profile nature of it and the seriousness of it, it was publicized. And then finally, just I would say a bit of a wrap up on a project that's been going on for about 12 months up until December. So Project Lifter, and we've reported on it a couple of times, has had 3 phases to it. Project Lifter is a retail theft project that we've been working with various downtown businesses as well as some businesses at Hillside and Mayfair malls, where we are utilizing site funding, which is special investigations and targeted enforcement program through the provincial government. We received funding from them to assist with repeat violent offenders who were continuously conducting crimes in our jurisdiction. So our work with after receiving the site funding has been ongoing for a period on and off, working closely with these retail outlets in order to try and curb the amount of retail theft that is going on in some of these retail outlets. And in previous reports, you've heard some fairly substantial numbers of both arrests as well as property merchandise that has been recovered. This phase of Project Lifter is now complete. A total of 174 arrests were made over the span of 15 days of operations in the 12-month period. So the last version of this was at the beginning of December to coincide with our holiday season, of course. And that is not an insignificant number of arrests at 174. Not too much of a surprise. Some of them were repeats, some of them were arrested in the same day. And in fact, in the most recent version of it in early December of 2024, we had one of the suspects who was arrested, had been arrested earlier in the day in Campbell River for this exact same offense. So this continues to be a problem. And although this version of Project Lifter is officially concluded and the site funding has been exhausted for the purposes of this particular project, it is something that is very much on our radar and will continue to be on our radar as we work with local businesses to try and support them and ensure that they have the protection they need. That's all I have, and when the chief's ready, I'll turn it back to them.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Deputy. Appreciate the update. So I've got a couple updates. I'll first start off with my written report that's in the package on page 12. I won't spend a lot of time going over it. I will highlight a couple things. On December the 17th, I attended with the other chiefs the framework table meeting facilitated by Dr. Kevin Godden, who's a special advisor, and also with SD 61 Superintendent Deb Whitten. Also met with a number of sergeants discussing professional development opportunities. A couple weeks ago, I was a guest reader during Literacy Week last week, attended my old elementary school, George J, to read to students. And this past weekend was the 52nd year of the Victoria City Police Athletic Association Senior Boys and Girls Basketball Tournament. And 52 years of Vic PD connecting with youth, supporting youth. We have quite a number of officers that actually played in that tournament when they were in high school. And so that's really nice to see, and it was well attended and great atmosphere for some great basketball. I'll leave my comments on that for the report. Are there any questions just on the submitted report in your package? Okay, not seeing any. I just had one other topic that I wanted to cover off with the board. The board may or may not have seen this, but the School District 61 Board of Education has put out a draft policy on police questioning of students in school. I've reviewed that draft policy, and I support the board's commitment to ensuring safety and well-being of all students. I think it's great that they're doing that, and it's great that they have a draft policy that they want to look at. It's also important that the board's policy is consistent with statute law, common law, and on matters related to child protection, ensuring that the protection of privacy for children and youth. And so as I went through that policy, I don't like the tone of how the policy is written. I think that the tone is quite appalling. It's disappointing to see the way that it's written, and I'll just point out one area that I kind of take issue with. It says that ensure, this is direction to school administrators and staff, ensure that the student is safe from violence, racially derogatory language, or otherwise abusive treatment of the student by the police. This includes, for instance, the student being kept safe from the use of strip searches at school. And so this to me falls in the category of creating a problem where one doesn't exist and then trying to come up with a solution to fixing a problem that doesn't exist. I just feel it's accusatory. I don't think it's fair for our officers at the Victoria Police Department to have this sort of language in policy. I ended up speaking to Superintendent Deb Whitten yesterday, expressed my concerns. I also expressed and offered a willingness for the Victoria Police Department to work with the district on revising the policy and updating it. There's a couple of inaccuracies and inconsistent approaches to to basic legal principles and protection of privacy. The superintendent asked me to write her a formal letter, which I will do by the end of the week. It'll be added to the board agenda, and I'm hoping that the district will look at engaging Vic PD to make sure that their policy is there, which again, I agree with the policy itself. Again, I think it's just not well written, and I don't like the tone of the policy. And I actually want to just turn it over to Inspector Colin Brown to speak specifically about strip searches and that part that is in the policy. So just so that for the board's awareness.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Just to give the board just a real quick update then. When I saw the policy in the reference to the strip search, I was actually quite surprised. And just to give the board the assurance, the Supreme Court of Canada brought down a case called R versus Golden in 2001. So this case has been on the books for almost a quarter century. And it goes through in detail the regulations and the formalities that police have to follow if they're ever going to engage in a strip search. And it also talks about the fact that strip searches are not part of it. And that if we're going to do a strip search, it really has to be for a good reason. Right off the bat, to do a strip search, the court says it shall not be done outside of police custody, certainly not at a school, unless there was some kind of crazy exigent circumstance that I couldn't even imagine. For police officers, we don't do strip searches on anyone unless they're lawfully arrested. Our constables cannot do strip searches unless they have prior supervisory approval. And really, the court talks about doing strip searches is really to just maintain public safety, either for the person under arrest, and I can give you an example. We have had examples in the recent where a person under arrest may have dangerous drugs on them, and so we will do a strip search to find those drugs so they don't ingest them in cells and die. And then oftentimes for weapons, if someone has a weapon, secreted a small weapon, there would be times where we would check for that. But I just can't imagine, as policing for almost 30 years, I have never heard of police engaging in a strip search on school property. I think that would be highly inappropriate. And suggesting that in a policy just appears to be a real disconnect. I just don't understand where that comes from. I'm curious as to where it does, but just to assure the board, I've never heard of officers engaging in a strip search on school property, particularly with children. In addition to R versus Golden, the Youth Criminal Justice Act says any kind of intervention with children, you would need to have a parent or guardian present there as well. And we certainly abide by the law, by what the Supreme Court of Canada says, and we take that really seriously. So those are kind of my thoughts on that, Chief, unless you have anything further.
Yeah, no, thank you for that Inspector Brown, I appreciate that. I think what, and I expressed my concerns to the superintendent in my discussion yesterday, is what the draft policy doesn't recognize is the close working relationship that we have. We have an amazing relationship with our school administrators and our school staff and our teachers. Anytime that the police are required to go onto school property during school hours, we don't know where the student's located. We don't know what classroom that they're in. We would always, and we continue to always get a hold of the staff, let them know this is a situation. School administrators and staff assist us in ensuring that we have a trauma-informed approach, that there's the least amount of disruption and chaos to the school if the police are gonna go there. So I think some of those elements of the alignment with school staff and how well we work together currently is missing. And what I don't like is some of the misleading and accusatory comments that are made in the tone, that the way the policy is written. I can't adjust the tone, but I can certainly make sure that at least I can work with the district if they're willing to collaborate on a policy that is gonna accurately reflect the law, the role of the police, better define the role for administrators and school staff, and make sure again that we're all working in alignment to protect the well-being and safety of students. And that's my update. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chief. Is there any questions about that, Paul?
Well, just given just going on a bit more from the chief and trying to correct some facts, you know, it's unfortunate, but the whole school police liaison program topic has been going on way too long, and I know it's in the hands of the ministry, and I hope that they decide some kind of course of action sooner than later. But through the chair to the chief, I was quite troubled to see a media release on January the 10th from the Greater Victoria Teachers Association. And I'm not going to comment on the right of the union to make such comments, just to give the public some context. I'm the former president of the Canadian Union of Public Employees British Columbia Division. I was also a former executive officer of the BC Federation of Labor. And I was very troubled to read a letter from the Teachers Association saying that, quote, the board has faced a relentless and coordinated campaign to reverse the decision led by local police departments themselves. And I just want to say through the chair and to the Greater Victoria Teachers Association, and more importantly to their members, as a board member of the Victoria Esquimalt Police Board, and given my background in 35 years in the labor movement, I can say that there is no relentless and coordinated campaign coming out of this office. There is no secret war room that's launching a 24/7 campaign on this matter. The decisions that I have voted on and this board has voted on has been solely squared on the issue of public safety and student safety, full stop. This is the issue at hand. I'm not going to talk about the other statements in that letter. That's up to the GVTA. But I just felt it was important to clarify the facts from my perspective, again, being a board member here and again, 35-year trade unionist in British Columbia. So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I know I said I was going to follow the agenda, but I've changed my mind. We are going to move forward to item 5B. We indicated to the speakers that they'd have a chance to speak at around 5:30. So we will be circling back to all the other items on the agenda. But I'm just wondering, so will we start with the speakers, or will you give an update on what this letter is?
Whatever.
Okay, well, I was just going to ask the chief to give a brief update on this item in our agenda, which is 5B for correspondence, the area chief's letter to Minister Beer. And then we do have 4 members of the public who would like to speak. Sorry, it's Barb.
Chair, and just a clarification, are you looking for a motion out of this, or is this just correspondence received?
This is just correspondence received.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll speak to the letter that's on page 18 of the package. I want to just put it into proper context that the police leaders have been at the table through a number of different review committees. The first committee started in 2021 and went on for 18 months to 2 years. And then the decision was made by School District 61 Board of Education on May 31st, 2023. So here we are in 2025 in January, and the letter that you have before you in your package is dated January the 9th. The chiefs have been patient. We have been collaborative. We have shown up to the table to try to come up with an agreement that works for everyone. And as Board Member Farrell commented, our sole purpose has been student safety. That's it, full stop. We have proposed a safety plan. We've put an MOU out. We've commented on a communications protocol and provided edits. We have listened to our Indigenous leaders, our Indigenous chiefs, the Muslim community, the Black community, many other community voices, including PACs, principals and vice principals, and also teachers in this. What we were optimistic that we were gonna get somewhere and find common ground when Minister Bear appointed a special advisor. And so we've had some meetings in December coming into January. And it's just unfortunate that we haven't been able to find common ground. And there's been a constant undermining of the role of police, not accepting that police officers are professionals. They're regulated. They're good at what they do. Are they perfect? No, they're not perfect. They're human beings. But the misleading charge language and the false narratives around the role of police in what we do in our region here, not in anywhere other parts of Canada or the United States or other parts of the world, but here locally. It's false and it's misleading. And the chiefs felt strongly that we would stand united. And here we are, a couple years after, to be able to put our thoughts together and write a one-page letter to the minister. And I want to be very clear. The minister did not ask us to write this letter. Every word that's in this letter, we stand behind. We continue to want to come to the table and work in a collaborative manner, but we refuse to be undermined and to be challenged and for there to be a false narrative that is spread against what police officers do every day. And one of the things that this board has heard loud and clear is Mia Golden. She is not a police officer. She's a youth and family counselor.
We're motivating on a letter that we're receiving. And I appreciate Chief passion, but we are receiving this letter and there is interest from the public. And I think that presenting the letter as is and speaking to it, but we don't need to motivate.
So Chair, if I can just finish off my one thought then, just with Mia Golden coming to this board and also to ST61 and sharing her concerns around the impact of not having school police liaison officers and student safety being compromised, I think is important, which then inform the chiefs to also write this letter. So I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for bringing up the point of order made written. We have 4 members of the public who want to speak, and I want to start by apologizing for the terrible setup that we have for members of the public who want to speak. I received a communication from one of my board members pointing out how unwelcoming this setup is to sort of have our backs to you for the beginning of the meeting. We do have Daisy. So I guess we're doing okay. Thank you very much. So the way this works is that each member of the public has 3 minutes to speak. I won't cut you off if you're finishing a sentence as we hit 3 minutes, but just as a general time frame. And I'll just say in advance that I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think it's really valuable for the board to hear from members of the public. So I'm going to start by inviting Alana Hampton to speak. Yeah. Do I sit here? Do I move? Wherever you're comfortable.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah, come on up. It's good.
Okay. Thanks. I'm just a mom.
Grade 3. Okay. You just get started whenever you're ready. Okay. 3, 2. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today about an issue that strikes at the heart of our democratic principles. The recent call by police chiefs for the Minister of Education to fire the ST61. As you all know, the police have a responsibility to uphold the rule of law and the democratic principles that underlie it. The letter sent to Minister Baer violates the ethical framework for decision-making set up by the Canadian Association of Police Chiefs. This ethical framework asserts adherence to democratic principles through the recognition of the legitimate authority of office holders and the importance of maintaining the public trust. To have police chiefs undermine democratic principles through this letter and other means undermines public trust in the fairness, equity, and impartiality in our local police departments. Let us remember how the SC61 board came to its decisions. These elected officials listened to the voices of students who had already experienced the SLO programs at their schools, and had a lot to say about the program. They also consulted parents, teachers, and the broader community. They recognized the concerns raised, particularly by marginalized groups, about the impact of the school liaison officer program. These decisions were not made in haste, but were guided by evidence, consultation, and a commitment to inclusivity. The board's call to municipalities to co-create a new program with transparency and accountability was a forward-thinking and responsible move. It's not a quick fix to a problem, but it was much needed to ensure the safety of students in schools, which, as I've heard all evening, or at least for the past 45 minutes, we all care about. It's not about maintaining the status quo, but it's about a collaborative approach to reimagine how we ensure safety and well-being in schools that prioritizes trust, mutual respect, and the inclusion of all stakeholders, which are key principles in a democratic society. Removing elected officials from office sets a deeply concerning precedent. It would suggest that taking bold steps to address systemic inequities in response to community concerns is punishable, which undermines the very nature of representative democracy, where officials are elected to make informed, sometimes difficult decisions on behalf of their constituents. When elected officials prioritize voices that have historically been ignored, when they strive to create systems that are fair and more just, they're doing exactly what democracy requires of them. It is not the role of external parties to dictate the fate of duly elected representatives. That responsibility lies with the voters who elected them. If there are disagreements with the board's decision, the appropriate avenue to address them is through dialogue, engagement, and ultimately the ballot box, not by undermining the entire system. What happens when the next board also wants transparency and accountability for a school liaison program that centers the safety of all students, regardless of their background, culture, gender, or other identities? Will their dismissal be called for as well? Are we to create a cycle where any effort to build equity and trust is met with fear and retribution? We need to uphold the integrity of our democratic institutions and respect the process that gives voice to the people, all of the people, including the very students that are in our schools. Let us ensure that our schools and communities are shaped by collaboration and equity, not fear and intimidation. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was perfectly timed. I practiced. And I still stumbled, so there you go. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call on one of the members of the public online, Lori Pop. Am I pronouncing your name properly? Poppy? Hi, thank you and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Just let me know when I can start.
Whenever you're ready, you just go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I am Lori Poppy from Parents and Police Together for School District 61. The past 19 months, I have endured an immense amount of work, challenges, and heartache. I've been told about countless horrific stories of violence in our schools concerning behaviors, including threats and intimidation involving weapons. I want to thank this board and all 4 police leaders for their tireless work and dedication to students and their safety in the School District 61 and in neighboring school districts. I have had the pleasure to address all 4 area chiefs in the past through CAS, Community Advocating for Students and Safety. I am proud to say that all 4 police chiefs took our concerns and recommendations seriously and have taken steps to address these concerns. Steps that have included creating and sending a draft safety plan, a draft memorandum of understanding, and even a draft communication protocol to the school board back in July. These actions further my confidence in all four police leaders and their commitment to delivering a safe and inclusive program for students in SD 61 with the goal of prevention and diversion through relationship building. I and many others, including parents, administrators, school counselors, teachers, and PACs, have not had the same collaborative and positive experience with the school board. Let me be clear. The school board is well aware of all the safety issues that students are facing daily at school and how challenging these issues are to navigate by administrators and school counselors without their partnered school liaison officer. I have been to some of these meetings and I am shocked at how these issues continue to be ignored by the school board. I have also attended the district PAC meeting in June where school board chair Nicole Duncan was invited to provide a year-end update. Us PAC reps were told that she would only agree to meet with us if we agreed not to ask her any questions. This school board has also denied letters of correspondence and public presentations that do not align with their decision. This board has highlighted misleading and inaccurate data in an attempt to further their stance on removing the school liaison officers. These are small examples of the collaborative challenges many of us have faced with the school board. It is oddly comforting to see reports of the same challenges from other stakeholders, rights holders, and staff highlighted recently in the media. I am very aware that Vic PD had to make a tough decision to divert funding from the school liaison program in 2018, and I understand that Vic PD continued meaningful visits with their family of schools while the remaining 71% of the school district enjoyed the partnership with their SPLOs. I just wanted to be here today to thank the area police chiefs for sharing their experiences of lack of collaboration with the school board, and thank all of you for your openness, willingness, and continued efforts to do whatever it takes to be ready to deliver a safety program to the students. Your actions have given us hope, especially from the students and families that thrive from a police program centered towards building bridges, offering soft landings, and guidance for students that help steer them away from the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to our third speaker, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name properly. Anave. And Anave, are you able to join us? Hi, welcome.
Hello. My name is Anna Sister. I am the Student Success Manager for Songhees Nation. I am also the PAC president, and it is actually our bi-monthly meeting, so the rest of the PAC members are in attendance currently, about 7 plus myself, and I'm also the SD 61 board liaison for the nation. Since the removal of the SPLO program, we as a nation have been very concerned with the grave dangers our students have been subjected to, such as gang recruitment, vape sales at middle and high schools, our students not feeling safe enough to use the washroom for fear of victimization, as well as the very real issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women and our girls being much more likely to fall victim to abduction and trafficking. I want to thank the 4 police leaders for their ongoing efforts and dedication to student safety in SD 61. Our chief and council have had a great working relationship with most of your police chiefs and are grateful for the transparency around the safety plan and other issues, including creating a draft safety plan, a draft MOU, and even a draft communication protocol to the SD 61 board back in July 2023. These actions deepen our confidence in these police leaders and their commitment to delivering a safe and inclusive program for the students in SD 61. We unfortunately have not had the same collaborative and positive experiences with the school board. We as a PAC and as a community and as a Lekwungen people have not been meaningfully consulted or respectfully engaged. We requested that they undergo cultural sensitivity training so that they can develop a sense of the realities that Songhees children and families face. We expressed many times the importance of having SPLO programs back in our family of schools and how Corporal Cole Brewer has built relationships within the community over many years. This is relevant to how our students feel with the police presence in schools. He is involved in the community and a consistent, safe presence. I am proud to be here today to thank the area police chiefs for sharing their experiences of lack of collaboration with the school board at SD 61, and thank you for all your willingness and continued collaboration to deliver a safety program to the students. Your actions deepen relationships and give our nation hope. A nation who fully support the SPLO program where our children have thrived while building bridges that has put students and their safety first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker of the evening is Bharat. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Probably not.
Hello, everyone on the school board. Thanks for listening. I'd like to address the board today on a governance question. It's regarding this letter as well. I'm a resident of Victoria and a parent of a child that goes to SD 61. As such, I am concerned about the jurisdictional and politicking issues raised by the Joint Chief's letter to the Provincial Minister of Education and Childcare. That's page 18 on your agenda. As a Victoria resident, I speak at this time on the role of the Victoria Police Chief primarily. The Victoria Police Chief is a municipal employee and a special one at that. Due to the unique role police play in our society, we have policy that puts this group of municipal employees outside the operational control of elected officials such as the city council. So this is so there's no attempts or even implications of attempts to control day-to-day actions of the police. And this is correct and appropriate. So it just falls upon the police board, that is you, to provide direction here. Given that the police wield significant power, this is appropriate. But this power goes both ways. And so this joint police board letter, this joint police chief letter to the Minister of Education, the Joint Chiefs say that we as police leaders have lost confidence in the school district 61 board. I think this is a political statement, especially when addressed to a minister who has the power to dismiss a democratically elected board. Whatever the disagreements are here, and I believe they can be addressed through dialogue, I would like the police board to consider the governance ramifications of such a political statement being made to the provincial minister here. And all of this is happening because there's a lack of consensus on what I would consider an operational matter, the SPLO program. This is currently non-operational, and the police would like to have this program is SD61. However, we're still building consensus on whether this program is urgent or critical to the safety of children in our schools. And there certainly isn't consensus that given all of our other challenges arising from homelessness, the drug crisis and more, that this vital importance of this program merits such political statements of such urgency. As I said before, the police have great power in our society, given their role in law and order and the independence to act on that power. This power, however, comes with great responsibility to act neutrally when it comes to interaction with elected officials. So I'm concerned that this letter goes outside this norm. And I urge the police board to consider the ramifications of such a political letter written by municipal employees acting in their official capacity with the Minister of Education. Thank you for your time and have a good evening as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to all the members of the public who took time to come and address the board. I really value the opportunity to hear from all of you. So I think we will circle back to the earlier part of our agenda, and you're absolutely welcome to stay and don't feel obligated to. You can sneak out.
Thank you.
Yes, Barb?
Chair, just before we move on from this, I want to make a statement because I fully support the SPLO program. I fully support the direction that we have taken and through us, our chief has taken. But what I am concerned about is the inflammation of putting something on correspondence and how that has flamed a fire, of which we are part of a discussion, we have given a direction, but I don't see us as a police board and putting correspondence on our board agenda as more than that, receiving the correspondence, because we've given the direction before. I just worry that we are now sitting in the middle of a conversation that we have given direction for, and now we're flaming a fire from public on both sides. So what I would like to suggest, and I'll make a motion, and if the board accepts it, fine, that we send to committee, and I would assume it would be governance, to review the purpose of how we put correspondence on our agenda and to what extent we action that. In other words, is that appropriate to allow public conversation on? And in the past, it hasn't been. So I move that motion. If there's a seconder. Dale? Tenant?
Sorry, can I just have clarification on that motion? It was,
The motion is to have the governance committee review correspondence on our agenda and what purpose and whether we allow public comment on that.
Seconder for that motion, it's Dale. Any discussion? Holly?
I'm just seeking some clarification. Are we wanting to have the governance committee review it as a policy, as like an overarching review versus, every time correspondence comes in, the governance committee decides whether or not?
As a policy.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any further discussion? Paul?
Yeah, no, look, I respectfully, I acknowledge my colleague's comments. I don't agree with kind of how that was set up regarding the motion. I think this issue in particular has been on the agenda for numerous times and is a live issue in the public, and I think it's very warranted that this piece of correspondence is on the agenda. I'm not going to talk about that any further, other than saying that it's not just a letter from Victoria Police, it's actually from 4 police jurisdictions. So we need to be careful that it's not just our letter, it's actually 4 jurisdictions. On the issue of policy and reviewing correspondence, in the sense of how we handle it, how we communicate it, and answering the question of, does it become an issue or a matter that the public can comment on? As the chair of the governance committee, I'd be happy to review that. There's no harm. Every public agency has processes for administering correspondence, and I think we can certainly give it a look. So I will support the motion on the sense of the kind of the bigger policy issue, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. And before I call the motion, I will just say that it's my hope, as an ex officio member of the governance committee, I can say this at the committee meeting, but that we do everything we can to encourage community participation and not do anything to limit community participation. So if we have to look at how we label things on our agenda, moving forward to do that, I hope that we take the opportunity to encourage that. So I'll call the motion now. All those in favor? Great, motion carries unanimous. So now we are going back to new business. Just to get my agenda open, which is the budget letter from the city of Victoria that is attached in your package. I'm sure everybody's had an opportunity to read this letter. Is a letter that we received on January 10th from the city of Victoria, requesting a detailed response to their request to reduce the budget by $2.05 million from the initial budget that was presented to them. They're seeking more detailed clarification of the impacts of that, and they have invited the board to attend a January 30th meeting and to have our finance chair present on that in more detail. So I think what I am going to be looking to do is to have I lost what I was reading. What I will be looking to do is to have a motion to have a letter in response to that indicating that the police board finance chair and available police board members will attend the January 30th City Council Committee of the Whole meeting and provide council with a detailed breakdown of a $2.05 million budget reduction to the 2025 Vic PD provisional budget and an update on the Section 27 appeal. And I think we've had many robust conversations as a board on this and how we want to proceed. But at this time, following the process laid out in Section 27, we do have to respond to their request with information, not with an amendment to our budget. So I'm looking for somebody to put forward a motion along those lines so that we can respond.
I'll move the motion as presented by the chairperson for discussion purposes.
Yeah, right. And just to amend it, I said the number wrong. It's 2.08. Any discussion? Great, and I'll call a motion on that. All those in favor? And motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Yes. Oh, Barb.
Thank you, Chair. At Esquimalt Council meeting last night where we had our first look at our budget, we also passed a motion to receive that information that you will be providing to Victoria Department, because both communities are affected no matter what. So you will be receiving a letter on behalf of the Esquimalt Council.
Thank you very much for the update. If we move on to item B, I'd like to suggest moving this agenda item to February, primarily because Sean is the board member who inquired about having this on the agenda and he is no longer available. He had to sign off at 5:30. Are you comfortable to move it to the February meeting?
Chair, if we have Sergeant Matt King that's here. He's been sitting here patiently.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so.
Then the rest of us are interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would like to move forward.
Okay, perfect. So I'll actually, Chair, turn it over to Deputy Chief McRae. Take it away.
Thank you. So this is in response, or it just was brought forward by board member Dylan, who provided an article as part of a series that's being done. The Dark Side of BC's Capital is how it's titled. It's through CTV, and for those who haven't seen it, it is worth having a read. And it's just talking a little bit about the article itself talks about online grooming, how it has evolved and changed over time, and how we've seen such an influx of that kind of behavior just with access to social media and online. So I'm going to go over just a couple kind of high level things here at Vic PD, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Matt King, who is in charge of our Special Victims Unit. And he will touch on a few other aspects of this, including some emerging trends that we are currently seeing. So just as a reminder to the board, in 2024, we did add an additional ICE investigator, and that was, we were fortunate to add that second ICE investigator. ICE stands for Internet Child Exploitation. So an ICE investigator, their role specifically is to try and work on and both prevent child exploitation, but also go after offenders and try to locate and arrest offenders for child exploitation. In late 2024 made a change to our ICE unit, the Integrated Child Exploitation Unit, in that instead of having just our 2 members at Victoria working on their own, they began working as part of a Capital Regional District Integrated Unit, which is an integrated unit in partnership with the Saanich Police Department, the Oakbay Police Department, and the Central Saanich Police Department, and of course, the Victoria Police Department. You will notice in 2025, we also have a budget ask for a cybersecurity analyst. And the cybersecurity analyst position in this year's budget has a twofold need. One is to help support and assist our cybercrimes investigators. So we have a cybercrime sergeant. We have ICE investigators. It's to assist with that as well. So on the operational side, and then there's also an IT aspect to it as well, where the cybersecurity analyst will be assisting our IT section in providing overall cybersecurity for the Victoria Police Department. With that, kind of general things that we've done in the last couple of years, we all know this has been an area of significantly expanding crime, cyber crime in general, and specifically on the topic of internet child exploitation. And this article, I'll turn it over to Sergeant King just to talk about some themes that we're seeing and some trends that we're seeing currently.
Thank you. So to be completely honest here, I watched only the section of this that I was actually in. And so my interpretation of what human trafficking is varies a little bit from the title of the article. So human trafficking involves the recruitment, transportation, harboring of persons, and the control of their movements for the purpose of exploiting them, typically for sexual exploitation or forced labor. And we're discussing, in terms of our office, we're talking about sexual exploitation. So human trafficking can be, but isn't necessarily related to, and this was one of the focus of the article, luring a child. That's section 172 of the criminal code. And our ICE investigators are investigating child luring. Not necessarily related to human trafficking, but could be. Section 286 of the criminal code deals with sexual services. So obtaining sexual services from a person under 18, material benefit from the same, procuring a person under 18 for sexual services. Those all are contained within that criminal code section. Again, not necessarily related to human trafficking, but could be. And then sexual exploitation, and that essentially is a section 153 of the criminal code. It's a person in authority, exploiter, sexually abusing a person under 18 or a person with a disability. So again, it could be related to human trafficking, but not necessarily. So in order for something to be human trafficking, there has to be act, means, and purpose. So the act is the recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring, recruitment of persons. We have to satisfy that. There usually is some form of means to do that. So a threat or abuse of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power, giving payments or benefits. And then finally, the purpose is forced commercial sex work or sexual exploitation. So these are complex investigations. We're talking about human trafficking. By nature, they are not necessarily just a local issue. They are broad. They are a national issue. So what we've seen in terms of trends, and I can talk a little bit about sort of how we notice these things, but is in the article that I saw that was talking about the circuit. We have tracked before, we have vehicle stops, there's lots of different ways, but traffickers moving across the country and hitting certain locations, large cities, following events. And then Victoria is one of the final stops usually on this tour prior to returning, just simply because of the location. Like I mentioned, they're complex investigations, so proving multiple acts, often reliant on digital evidence and highly dependent on victim cooperation. I use the term victim, I could say survivor as well. The survivors often have no local community supports due to the nature of the offense. So moving from place to place, they could have supports here, but quite often they do not. Many victims or survivors also face other significant challenges. So drug addictions, mental health issues, psychological traumas, which can be difficult to manage in court processes. So these are difficult investigations. There's a lot of barriers for these survivors to face leaving the person who is committing offenses against them. So drug use and debt, violence or threats of harm, withholding ID, minimal location education or life skills, language barriers. And when I say language barriers, it could be from a multitude of different cultural backgrounds. One of the trends we see is the province of Quebec, women being transported here from the province of Quebec, who may have limited language abilities in English. There may be a created sense of belonging with the offender, false promises of better life, triggers from trauma could also stop a person from leaving this. So I mentioned this circuit, so transient moving city to city, often following sporting events. Dates are often set up on dating sites prior to arriving in the city. And what we tend to see is staying for 2 to 3 days and then leaving. And that adds some complexity for local police like ourselves, small municipal police department. When, once we hear about what's occurring, quite often the offender and victim have already left. And so it becomes difficult then to gain some traction. And that's where, this victimization happens as they're moving from place to place, and there's just not buy-in or ability to gather further evidence. So section 279 talks about, the criminal code talks about the 4 criminal code charging sections for trafficking in person. So how we learn these sorts of, how we gain information. Yes, we could learn information from a victim or survivor calling police and saying, I'm being trafficked across the country and I'm being sold for sexual services against my will. That I've never encountered that yet. That's not usually, I've never seen that happen. Not to say it couldn't happen, but these are you know, there's a lot of challenges here. So usually, so there's a few different ways. So vehicle stops, so proactive vehicle stops by police. There's certain things that could stand out. One of these things or 2 of these things on their own may not be impactful, but a number of them could be. So no legitimate or income or employment. The male, and we're usually talking about males being the offenders here. We're talking female, we're usually talking about females being their survivors or victims. Doesn't have ID or a phone, the male has it. New clothing, lingerie, designer shoes, purses, injuries or bruises to the female. Branding tattoos are a method utilized by some traffickers on their victims. Limited area knowledge, talk and moving frequently. And generally we're looking at females age 13 to their early 20s and in an out of province or rental vehicle. When I was doing some queries, I located 4 similar documented files in 23 and 24, where proactive vehicle stops were completed and documented, either convicted or documented by police as being human traffickers who had been documented elsewhere in the country. Assaults, so they could come in and so it could be an assault. So an assault or physical dispute at a hotel or short-term rental could be potentially, not always, of course. So I found 2 similar files in 21 and 22. One of those I was actually the first patrol on sent there. So one was intimate partner violence related. That's my background prior to being in this office, and that's where I was involved. That file involved an arrest by another jurisdiction. Upon arrest, the suspect, who had a history of violent offenses, of conspiracy to commit firearm offenses, was located with a youth national from another country who is suspected to also be a human trafficking victim. And then there was another victim, so 2 victims in that file. There was no conviction as the substantive survivor declined to participate in the court process. Could be fraud. So I located a $20,000 fraud where the suspect had a significant history of human trafficking out of Lower Mainland, suspected. It could be other intelligence information. So there's been some proactive work out of our office in years past with speaking with local sex trade workers to ensure their safety and ensuring that they are not a victim of this crime. And liaising with area hotels to determine if there's any suspicious persons entering, exiting, staying at their locations. We deal with victim management from other jurisdictions, and that could be it's largely due to the protracted court processes because these are complex investigations. So liaising with victims who have ended up here in Victoria on behalf of another agency. We've done that a number of times, and I had requests last week for the same thing. And then there was a rash of files in 22 and 23. There was 18 that I located, and they were suspected human trafficking. They may or may not have been, but the crux of what those were hand-delivered, handwritten notes left at, or advertisements left at residences, so apartment buildings, advertising sexual services of young women. And quite often what we were seeing was a couple of days stay and then they were gone again. And one of those files was linked to a suspect who had a background in human trafficking in North Island as well as in the Lower Mainland. And then I'll end with the comments I made in the article had to do with this does exist and it is here in Victoria. And so I'll highlight it's dated, but we're talking about January 2020. There was a Swift Current Saskatchewan RCMP file in which there was 2 vehicles stopped. There were 2 youth who were in that vehicle, both from Victoria. They were being trafficked across the country. And then there were 4 arrests made in that event. One of the suspects was convicted of human trafficking or trafficking in persons of a person under 18, 2 convicted of perjury, and 1 was it was adjourned for that final person. So it does exist here in Victoria. It was really my point. So that's what I have. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thanks very much for that, Mr. King. And obviously, this is something, there's a lot to this. There's a lot of complexities, a lot of online nature, a lot of in-person. And we are fortunate we have a very good working relationship with various support agencies in Greater Victoria who do support sex trade workers. And that relationship is very important to be able to have information sharing as best we possibly can to hopefully try to keep this as minimized as a problem as or minimized as an issue, less victims as we possibly can.
I'm just worried, wondering, I'm not worried, I'm wondering if there is, what kind of public education we're doing around this, because it seems to be getting to be it seems to be growing and it seems to be infiltrating into different areas. Like, I don't think it's just with sex workers anymore. And I just know when in traveling to other places where there's a high amount of child prostitution and human trafficking, there is quite a substantial public campaign out there so that people are quite alert. And I'm just curious if we're getting to that point where we need to be at the forefront of educating people around what are the dangers.
So I can just touch on that really briefly. Last year, in the 2023, I don't have the 2024 numbers. Victoria Police either supported or proactively started, I think it's 99 different public safety campaigns. I don't remember if this was one of them or not. It's something that we monitor, obviously, if we see trends going up or down, and in over a whole bunch of different things, not just around statistics, but if we're seeing that to then support those. I'm not sure if we did then or not, or if we did last year, but it is something that you will obviously keep in mind.
It was the last I recall where it was a RP section, we did a release, and I believe it was in 2022. But it was last time it was, I remember there being not being in the works.
Okay.
That's whatever, it may have been 2021. Jan, you may remember better.
Yeah,
You would have been
it was
supervisor.
when I was in the section, I think 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
And I can also say there's been some informal education on behalf of MIST. This is near and dear to me in Golden, so I know that the MIST unit has done several sort of presentations to community groups, but not a campaign.
That's great, thank you. It just seems to be cropping up more and more. I'm seeing it around and it's being identified as a issue it's growing. And so I was just curious.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated the presentation and sorry that you had to sit through the very longest meeting before it's your turn to present. Any other questions on that topic? Okay, thank you. We just have a few more items. I want to just so new business item C, the annual report from the Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner. I don't know if you've all had a chance to review it. The link was in the agenda package, but there were just some important highlights that I thought that the chief could just speak to briefly.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. And I had a discussion with Inspector Colin Brown and he'll lead the discussion for the board. Go ahead, Colin.
Thank you very much.
So I just had a look at the report, as I'm sure you have as well. So when I go through a report like that, I'm basically looking for trends with respect to our department, right? And this is something that I'm doing throughout the year. You'll look and you'll see the stats there. There's no real outliers there. As far as the number of complaints go, they're consistent with our 5-year average. It looks like they're down a little bit. They may be up a little bit the next year, but they're certainly within a consistent range. I also had a look at comparing us to other bigger size departments. We're probably the 3rd biggest municipal department in BC. So I'm looking at Vancouver and I'm looking at Surrey, and they appear to have more complaints, likely because they have bigger, a bigger force rather than we're kind of in that 3rd range. So I feel like overall, we're kind of in the range. Just some general comments. Obviously, we feel we have a really good relationship with the Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner. We fully support their work We fully support civilian oversight. I can tell you, being familiar with the different systems throughout Canada and some of the systems in the US, I can tell you, in my opinion, I think our civilian oversight model is the best in Canada, for sure. And I think it really delivers on providing accountability to the citizens we serve. Just to put it in some context, and I don't have the exact number here, but I estimate we probably had 40,000 contacts with the public last year in 2024, approximately. And so when you look at it through that lens of having 40,000 contacts, and I think in the report here, I think there was 72 or 73 complaints. And of those, not all of those complaints are substantiated. A lot of them are looked at, and there's actually no form of misconduct there. So, and that's not to say that, you know, when people complain about the police, we have a very rigorous system where it's investigated. It's a client-centered process. Whether the complaint is found valid or not, I can certainly tell you as a discipline authority, it's very important for me to try and reach out to people, because whether it's a valid complaint or not, there is a reason why people made a complaint. And I like to try and reach out to people and see if we can resolve that formally or informally. I would say the only thing, a couple things for the board to look at. There is a section in the report to deal with ADR, alternative dispute resolution. The commissioner says he is supportive of that. I know he is. I think alternative dispute resolution is a really important part of the system. I think oftentimes when you can bring parties together, it's a more meaningful rendering, a more meaningful conclusion for everyone. The only thing that I would suggest, and we have spoken about this with the OPCC before, I think there's an opportunity to expand that in the sense of when they're doing their admissibility consideration, sometimes for lower level complaints, I would certainly like to see a system where, if, you know, and again, this is up to the OPCC to decide, but if they can categorize something as a potential complaint that needs to be investigated, but it's lower level, I would like to see a system where the complainant is given the option to go to ADR, and if they're not interested in ADR, then the lower level complaint just gets closed. And the reason why I am a fan of that is because I think that there are some very important complaints that need to be investigated. They are resource consuming activities, and I really want to devote as many resources as we can to dealing with the more difficult complaints, to providing that better accountability. You know, we have mentioned that with the OPCC before. I'm not sure if they're continuing to look at that, but that is certainly something I would be interested in, you know, as far as going forward. Otherwise, as I said, I think it's a good report. We certainly have a good relationship with the OPCC. I can tell you the staff down there work very hard. They take their job very seriously. They're very fair. And, you know, it's a good working relationship. But unless anyone has any questions about that.
No, thank you. Thank you for speaking to that. And I think this report is great. And I hope that I've asked Tanya to put it on our calendar for us to review every year, because as the people referring things sometimes to OPCC, I think we need to circle back and look at the total picture. I think this is a really well done report and illustrated it beautifully to me. Dale?
One thing I found really interesting on this report was a recommendation section, which started on 35. And certainly I've been told before that I'm asking for information that's more operational or have comments rather than oversight. But when you look at the list of recommendations, it's often that the board review, that the board consider, that the board review and amend, that the board consider the requirements of. So I'm just kind of seeing how that fits in terms of advisory versus operational, because it looks like some of the issues were operational in nature, but the board then has a responsibility to respond, and so I'm trying to sort that through. So if anyone's, you know, has a chance to look at that, wants to have a conversation with me about it, share that, because I'm just trying to. It seems like I read the report, there was gravity in terms of the board's responsibility and the significance of the board's responsibility and accountability.
Just clarification, are you looking at the recommendation regarding the Vancouver Police Department? I'm assuming?
There's a different one, so I don't know if they're all the police.
The one I think the ones in the main report, maybe Inspector Brown can clarify, but
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, to me, they don't actually identify it this way, but what it looks like to me is that they are identifying certain service and policy complaints that the board is required to have jurisdiction over. And sometimes those service and policy complaints can arise from an operational misconduct. They don't actually clarify it as service and policy in their report. They refer to it as recommendations to the board. But as I look through these, it looks like these are opportunities for the commission to say to the police board, in this case, it just happened to be Vancouver because they're the biggest game in town and they get the most of these. It looks like it's the commission exercising under Division 5 to ask the board to look at service or policy issues. And then the board is looking at that. And I can tell you, this board, although you don't get as many as the Vancouver Police Department, you also adjudicate and review service or policy issues.
Thank you very much, Paul. Did you want to respond?
Well, just following Inspector Brown, just a reminder that we undertook a huge amount of work reviewing our process on how we deal internally with service or policy complaints, and that took about a year, I think. Just to recap, this was reported at the last meeting, if my memory serves me correct. But we have provided the OPCC a copy of our work, as well as the ministry is public safety has also been provided a copy. So it's all tied into that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions on this? No, so I think we'll just correspondence item A, the econ December update. I'm just going to receive this for correspondence and imagine that everybody has had a chance to review it in detail. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the econ update? No, thank you. Then I think our last item is the commendation for Constable Galano. And I hope you've all had a chance to read it. I won't reiterate the entire thing, but it was just a parent of a daughter in mental distress writing to appreciate a specific experience with Constable Galano, and also raining some praise on Vic D and Chief Manick and the department as a whole. And I appreciate any opportunity to acknowledge members for exceptional work, and I encourage anybody in the public who's listening to take an opportunity to write in and share a positive experience that they have, because I think it's really meaningful to be able to share that with the member, and for us to be able to review it as a board and to report on it publicly.
Perfect.
Great, thank you very much. And I just got a message from Cheryl that she's able to answer a question that was asked earlier.
Yes, so we did a human trafficking awareness campaign in 2023. We did a long for social media, 3-minute video talking about what human trafficking is, common signs, prevention, and what to do if someone you know is a victim. So what we do, there's so many campaigns, so we don't do the same ones every year, but we do support Human Trafficking Day, Awareness Day every year, and elevate things. I also wanted to address that they do a really good job on education with this in schools these days. So I have a middle school daughter, and this is really an active part of her programming as well, is what is really online safety and awareness. So in my experience, I think there's a lot of resources that are doing good things like this.
Thank you very much. And thank you for knowing that I would check my text during the meeting. I think everybody knows that I can check my text during the meeting. So thank you very much, everybody, for the extra long one, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.